Alright everyone, welcome to the first episode of Create Stuff, where I create a The Office chatbot, kinda. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I talk about different Python tutorials and C# and everything else in between. So I was in the mood to make something one evening, and I don't know how it came to me, but my favorite TV show is The Office, and I think like a lot of you, we find that as the best show ever. And I wanted to make something related to that, but I couldn't quite think of what, and then it hit me. I need to make a chatbot that when you talk to it, it feeds you back Office quotes, and I thought that was the greatest thing. So I started to do some research on how to create a chatbot in Python, and then I came across this library called Chatbot, which you're seeing right now. And it allows you to not only, create a chatbot, but you can also train a chatbot with what you want it to say. So this is some code I stole straight from their website. And let's just go over it real quick. So we have a chatbot, which is initialized, and you give it a name, but I don't think the name really matters. But what really matters is how we train it. And right here is an example of one way you can train it by giving it lines in succession in a list. So the first line is, "Hi, how can I help you?" And then if the bot sees that, it will then go to the second line that you traded. Something like, "Hi, how can I help you?" It will say, "Sure, I'd like to book a flight to Iceland." And then if you say something like the middle line, it'll then feed you the last line. So if we go ahead and run this example, and we run with the chat that we give it saying, "I would like to book a flight," it then responds with, "What is wavelength?" Wah, wah, wah. And then I thought, well, something had to go wrong, so I ran it again, and then it responds, "Why would I feel sad? I don't understand." I didn't let that stop me, I just persevered, and I thought, this works well enough for me. So first things first, I needed a place to store all of its quote-unquote machine learning data, and so I went with a SQLite database, and here you can see that I set it up and just called it database.db. And here you can see another way of training it, which is just feeding it individual 2 lines of training data. So the first sentence is something that presumably I would ask the bot, and then the second line is something that it would respond with. So after playing around with it for a little while and Googling different things and looking at different documentation, I figured it was finally time to start adding some data to our trainer. And thus I had to go look for Office quotes, and that was probably the best part. So after grabbing a bunch of quotes off different sites on Google, I then had to structure it in a list in a way that one was giving something that would prompt the quote, and that was probably the hardest part. Like, for example, if we wanted the chatbot to say, "Dwight, you ignorant slut," what could we possibly say to prompt that? Maybe something like depression. Isn't that just a fancy word for feeling bummed out? Alright, so after writing about 60 or so lines of conversation, one after another sequentially, I decided to go ahead and give it a try. So the first thing it's going to do, it's going to train the bot. And you can see it does that pretty quick for just 60 some lines of conversation. And then we'll go ahead and write a few things. So the first thing I'm going to try is "Does your foot hurt?" And I can't, as you can see, I have a hard time spelling that. And then I try something else and I say, "Are you hungry?" And it responds, "I never thought I'd say this, but I think I ate too much bone marrow." So that one's pretty good. And then I put, "Wow, that sucks." And it responds, "I have bad news." And I don't think that is the Office quote. I think that's my quote. So that's where we got a little bit confused, was what's my quote and what's something from The Office. And sometimes it read things that I would write rather than an Office response, which I didn't like, obviously. So after 40 or so minutes of trying to run different configurations and whatnot, I ended up just changing how we train the bot. And I made each individual, prompt and response its own conversation instead of all in one. So the next thing that I wanted to do after playing around with making the chatbot after a while was just create a user interface. And of course, the command line would work, but I wanted to make something maybe a little more visually pleasing. So I decided to just make it a web application. And to do that, I started using Flask to build this application. One of the things I found very difficult about creating this application was getting the response to and from the backend API while using Flask. And I wasn't quite sure how to do that, and thanks to this guy right now, Julian Nash, I watched his video on how to use JavaScript in order to make the call and receive the response. Go check out his channel. He does really good content, and I followed his tutorial here, and it worked like a charm. So now JavaScript makes the call to my Flask, API backend, and it receives the response, which the response holds the response from the bot. And that helps facilitate this user experience where I type in something, it shows it to the user, and then it'll bring back the bot's response. So, all right, guys, so this is the final product. This is the chatbot that I went ahead and I made. And right here we are in VS Code, and on the left here is the project file. And I'll have this whole project linked in the description on my GitHub if you want to go check that out and download it and play around with it. Maybe you can add your own, office quotes to the database and the trainer and make it even more office-esque, if you will. But yeah, this is basically as far as I got, and I'm quite proud of how it works. So I will just show you a little bit of the code, what I think you guys will enjoy seeing, and then we'll go ahead and get in the full demo. So here is the main route with Flask, and it just renders index.html. And here is our API that are JavaScript calls. So it'll get a request from JavaScript. This is just for testing purposes, where it prints it out. And then it will respond with this get chat function that I created, which gets the response from the chatbot and shows it back to the user. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and try running it. So Python example.py. All right, so this is the user interface. So we have a message field. This is where I type the message, and this is basically just the conversation field right here. And I have it scrolling. So let's go ahead and just say something like, hey, how are you? And then it responds, I never thought I'd say this, but I think I ate too much bone marrow. And you saw that earlier. What if we say, are you depressed? And then it responds with the same thing. What's going on? I'm sorry, I do not understand. And then I ask, how are you doing today? If I don't have some cake soon, I might die. So you can see that if it says something, it doesn't have a very good choice of what it should choose. So for the chatbot, the similarity threshold, if I make it lower, it'll choose more at random. But if it has a lower choice value, meaning it's not quite sure if that's the correct response or not, if it's below 0.5 or 50%, it'll say, I'm sorry, but I do not understand. So I said, how are you today? And I said, if I don't have some cake soon, I might die. That's not very good. I don't hate it. I just don't like it all, and it's terrible. You're too funny. And then, I'm sorry, but I don't understand, because I don't have anything probably related to funny in the machine learning database, the storage there. Let me think of something else that would prompt something. Did you get the facts? And then it says, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. I'm not quite sure what that has to do with facts, but hey, it responded something from the office, which is neat. Will you marry me? And then it responds, I don't want to be married in a tent like a hobo. I think Angela said that to Andy. And Grandma Mimi can't be in Canvas that long. Something I should have put. See, you can see how you can continuously add to this with amazing quotes. I'm just thinking about right now. Let me do one more. Okay, so I finally put something. It gave me another response. But I put that's terrible. It says, guess what? I have flaws. What are they? Oh, I don't know. I sing in the shower. Sometimes I spend too much time volunteering. Occasionally I'll hit someone with a car. So sue me. So it's really cool. I really enjoy this, and supposedly as it progresses, we don't have it set to read only. So as it progresses and as I continue to talk to it, it will learn the best response as I continue to talk to it. So does it work like that? Does it work as intended? I'm not sure, but I think it's cool that it works, at least some of the time. So If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like. I really spent a lot of time on it, and I would appreciate it if you did. And after this video, I plan on doing a whole series on how to create a chatbot from start to finish. And it's going to be a more serious chatbot, not Office themed. But if you're interested in checking that out, stay tuned, and that will come out hopefully shortly. So thanks so much, guys, for watching this. I appreciate all of you. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video, hopefully.